We had Cordell on, and then literally, I don't know what, 20 minutes after he signs off with us, we get the breaking news that the Ravens pull out of the Maxx Crosby trade, just completely running. We've been trying to break it down since last night. We had a ton of phones. So our producer, Brandon Combs, said, let me hit up Cordell, see if he'll come back on. And we are pleased and fortunate and grateful that Cordell Woodland's going to join us once again here. He covers the Orioles and the Ravens for 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore. He's the co-host of the Fresh Take on 105.7 The Fan. You can hit him up on Twitter at Cordell Woodland. Cordell, just before we get started, man, how has the last 24 hours been for you?
Complete whirlwind. Everything I thought I knew, I didn't know. And the Ravens off season has completely been flipped upside down to a degree. Obviously, they go and get Trey Hendrickson earlier today, so that at least somewhat stabilizes them. But the Maxx Crosby deal was the deal to this point in the off season, and for that to be kind of wiped away now, you do wonder what the rest of the off season looks like for the Ravens.
Yeah, for sure. And that was literally the first word that I had written down here, was that it's been a whirlwind of a 24 hours for both teams. So let's work this. We're still trying to put the puzzle pieces together. We remember Maxx Crosby was shut down for the final 2 games of the season, reportedly angered him and called leave the facility. And in January, he indeed had the surgery to clean up the left meniscus, and all the reporting has been that Maxx Crosby would be ready to go for the start of the season. So from the information you've gathered, what was it in the physical that caused the Ravens to back out of the trade? Was Eric DeCosta in the front office not made aware of the medical condition of Crosby before the trade?
Well, we spoke to Eric DeCosta, maybe about an hour ago it ended. The press conference ended. The Ravens made an impromptu announcement that Eric DeCosta was going to speak today. And so, obviously there are some things that he can say and some things he can't say. And when you start talking about physicals and injuries and MRIs and all of that stuff, HIPAA violations start to pop up. So he was very careful today to not indicate anything medical as to why they backed out of the deal. He really didn't give a reason as to why they backed out of the deal. He just seemed very heartbroken that they weren't able to complete the deal. He talked about how highly he thinks of Maxx Crosby and how much they really wanted to get this deal done. And he even went as far. I asked him about teaming Crosby and Hendrickson up, and that seemed like that was a part of their plans as well. So clearly this throws a huge wrench into their off-season plans. When you start to piece together the puzzle pieces of things that have come out, it does seem like there was something with Crosby's medicals that they didn't like, that they didn't feel comfortable with. And, by all accounts, it seems like Crosby just got off crutches within the last week. So I don't think it was merely just him failing the physical. I don't think anybody really expected Maxx Crosby to pass a physical right now while he's in the process of rehabbing and trying to get back upright. I think and look, again, I'm merely speculating based off of the little crumbs that I have been able to kind of piece together, but it just seems like they weren't as comfortable with the long-term picture with Crosby. I think that they maybe were concerned with, okay, maybe he will be able to get back on the field and he's on schedule now, but what does his knee and that meniscus look like a year from now, 2 years from now? So I think you start talking about investing 2 first-round picks, which, again, this is something that they haven't done. I do think that they wanted to make sure they turned over every stone and looked at it with the long-term vision. And it's very possible that everybody in the Ravens front office wasn't on the same page with this. Eric DeCosta today, talking to him, he seemed like he really wanted this to work. So maybe there were other people, a part of the Ravens brass, that felt differently. And, again, I'm speculating, but it's very possible that he was outnumbered in terms of how they wanted to approach this going forward.
Yeah, Cordell, definitely going to be more details that will be revealed down the road, and we'll get the ultimate truth as to why that decision was made. All right, let's pan out why now. With Crosby and that deal officially next, the next immediate question in my mind is, where do you see Mad Max landing? The ripple effects of yesterday have so many suitors scrambling due to already committed resources and impacts on the cap. But what team or teams, in your estimation, make the most sense to land Maxx Crosby?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if anybody gets him outside of the Raiders. From some of the reports I've seen, it doesn't seem like the Raiders are coming down off their asking price of 2 firsts. And if I'm a team, I can't help but wonder, why would the Ravens pull out after doing this deal? Why would I then come behind and give 2 first-round picks? Now, I get it. Crosby's agent and also the surgeon who has a spotless reputation in the league spoke highly of Crosby's process and have said that if at worst he's right where he needs to be, if not ahead of schedule. But you see that the Cowboys team physician also helped out the Ravens in assessing Crosby's medicals. The Cowboys are another team that apparently backed out of negotiations or backed out of trade talks, I should say, for Maxx Crosby. So word travels. I can't imagine that they're going to get 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby as it stands right now. I think that they'd have to come down on their asking price before anybody really is seriously talking about trading for him. My best guess is he's probably going to be a Raider. Maybe we see a deal get done during the draft. But tough to know right now considering there's so much unknown information around this whole deal.
Yeah, definitely. I got to take some time for this sucker to play out. Cordell, broader question. On a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 the highest, where do you rank the chaos caused across the league from the Crosby trade not materializing? Do you feel multiple front offices were since scrambling last night, probably brewing some coffee, probably wee hours of the morning? Was it true? Just utter chaos in your estimation, a lot of these front offices across the league?
Well, I'm sure it was an eyebrow-raising situation, if nothing else. I mean, because immediately you start wondering, okay, what's the Ravens' next move now? And also with the Raiders, how does this impact, a lot of the deals they made? The Raiders spent a lot of money during the legal tampering period. There was a lot of deals being announced for them. Obviously, they paid the Ravens center Tyler Linderbaum $27 million a year right now. So they are, even though they're a team that's not expected to do much right now, they have been spending some money. And I saw Spot Track ended up tweeting out after the Crosby deal got nixed that with Crosby going back to the Raiders, that takes away $30 million of cap space from the Raiders. But all reports indicate that the Raiders are still prepared to honor all of the deals that they had set out with these guys. None of the players that had deals announced, they don't plan. They said that they hadn't heard from the Raiders that anything had changed. So it seems like they'll be able to handle that. But for the rest of the league, and look, I know a lot of people out there have wondered, how this impacts teams doing business with the Ravens or anything like that. First of all, this isn't the first time that the Ravens have kind of pulled the rug from under a deal for their own reasons. All have been medically related. But this isn't the first time that they did that. Definitely the first time it's happened to this magnitude. And talking to Eric DeCosta today at the press conference, you could sense that he doesn't, this is a very proud organization. I don't think that he likes the public reception to this, but he over and over again today said that he understands it. But by no means do I anticipate teams not wanting to do business with the Ravens or agents not wanting to do business with the Ravens. As Eric DeCosta said today when he was asked about that very thing, he said his phone has still been ringing off the hook. So I don't think it's going to change anything in that department, but no doubt I'm sure there was an element of surprise around the league considering most of us thought this deal was done, considering it was announced, Friday evening, and then late Tuesday night, we get the alert that you got to make sure it's not fake news that the deal fell through.
Yeah, talking to Cordell Woodland here on BetMGM tonight, Westwood One Sports. He's Brad Evans, I'm Pat Boyle. Cordell covers the Orioles and the Ravens for 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore. He's the co-host of The Fresh Take on 105.7 The Fan. Cordell, these are my words. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. These are my words. I think Baltimore got cold feet and realized that they could sign Trey Hendrickson instead and obviously not have to give up draft capital. So I just want to ask you, if Hendrickson wasn't still available on the market, do you think the Ravens still nix the trade for Maxx Crosby? Because I can't imagine the two things are unrelated.
It's honestly very tough to say, to be honest with you. I mean, from the outside looking in, I could completely understand why you would feel that way. It's hard not to think. I mean, when something like this happens, everybody puts the tinfoil hat on and we all come up with our own conspiracy theories because this is so bizarre and this isn't something that you see on the regular basis that we're trying to come with as many logical answers as possible. And look, we'll never know. It's tough to really answer that because if Trey Hendrickson was still available, and again, if you believe Eric DeCosta, their plan was to try to get both of these guys. So I can't sit here and say that I, without a doubt, believe that if Trey Hendrickson wasn't available, that they would have still nixed this deal. But I also don't know what they saw with Maxx Crosby's meniscus that made them want to back out. Maybe they did see something that was bad enough to where they didn't feel comfortable making that type of investment. And, they were just prepared to kind of bite the bullet in that. I'm not sure, but I do think that it's fair to wonder what would have been had Trey Hendrickson been taken off the board. And by all accounts, it seemed like he was headed to the Colts. So he kind of made a quick U-turn to come back to Baltimore, which kind of adds to that Ravens Colts history, if you guys know a lot about the Colts leaving Baltimore.
No doubt about it. A lot of ripple effects on drama on high, to say the least. All right, Cordell, let's go on and pivot and talk about some other areas of the Baltimore Ravens. What other areas in your mind do you feel that they got to address this offseason via the draft or free agency? And is wide receiver one of them? Zay Flowers is a clear WR1 on this roster. But what's the temperature on Rashad Bateman after a down year? And WR3, Devontae Walker, do you see them going the free agent or NFL draft route if they invest in the position at all? So what are your thoughts on what Baltimore does at wide receiver, or are they going to stand pat?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expect them to make some moves at wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent. Tylan Wallace ended up getting a deal as well this offseason. You mentioned Tez Walker. I mean, he's a young guy. I think he's going into year 3. He hasn't shown a lot, so it's tough for me to imagine that they're going to put a lot of their offensive eggs into his basket. Obviously, they know what they have in Zay. I think Zay is a premier receiver. Zay is one of the tougher guys to guard. But no doubt, I think that's a position that they're going to look to improve at. They typically take a couple of swings in the draft, so it wouldn't shock me to see them draft a receiver or even two. Definitely wouldn't shock me to see them add a receiver maybe late into the summer, right before training camp, or even a little bit before mini camp, add a veteran receiver. They're known to add those types. They had D-Hop last year, had OBJ a couple of years ago, had Nelson Aguilar. So they're known for bringing in those kind of long in the tooth veterans at that position. So I think that's going to be their plan. And in terms of positions that they need to be looking at, I mean, offensive line is still at the top of the list. They just lost their center, Tyler Linderbaum, to the Raiders. They did sign John Simpson back. He was with the Jets, but he was with Baltimore a couple of years ago. John Simpson's fine. He is an upgrade over the guards that they had starting for them last year, but anybody, to be honest with you, would have been an upgrade over the guards that they had starting last year. So I do think, the money that they're paying John Simpson, he's being brought in to be a starter. So I am curious to see if they lean into Emory Jones, who will be going into his second year out of LSU at the other guard position. Eric DeCosta today said that they plan to bring in a couple of free agent guys, definitely at center. So I think they're still working. They're still trying to pick up the pieces from obviously this Max deal, but no doubt I think offensive line is at the forefront of their minds this offseason.
Talking to Cordell Woodland here for another 2 minutes or so. He covers the Orioles and the Ravens for 107 The Fan. Find him on Twitter at Woodland. Cordell, we also got the news today. Lamar Jackson's contract was restructured, something that was speculated would happen, and that cleared up $40 million in cap space. There were some reports, though, that the restructuring was unofficially finalized yesterday, though, before the Ravens pulled out of the trade for Maxx Crosby. I don't know if Eric DeCosta spoke on that, but do you think the Lamar Jackson contract played a factor in them pulling out of the Crosby trade at all?
I don't think so. Like you said, it ended up freeing $40 million. They got the deal done. Initially, the trade was announced before anything had been done to Lamar's contract. I don't anticipate that. I think the Ravens know Lamar Jackson enough to know that they couldn't make a move like that and make it be contingent on them getting an extension done with Lamar Jackson. That's just, it's too much of a risk. It's too much of an unknown. So I think they're financially, responsible enough to be able to make that type of deal without leaning on Lamar Jackson needing to be extended. And I still think the extension is going to happen at some point. I do think I read earlier today that by them doing the restructure right now, it does make it less likely that an extension gets reached this offseason. But that doesn't mean that something can't happen, going into next offseason or even going into the start of the season or during the season, even though Lamar has said, considering he's his own agent, he's not going to negotiate during the season. So that's very unlikely. But, yeah, I don't believe that Lamar's contract situation had an impact on the Max deal because Lamar's contract situation was always still going to be a thing. Steve Bisciotti had drawn the line in the sand and said they needed to get the extension done by the start of the new league year, or they would do what they did, which was restructure his deal. So I think that they have been making moves with the idea in the back of their mind that the most likely scenario was that they would do a restructure over an extension, at least for now.
All right. Hey, Cordell, we appreciate the time, man. Hopefully that was the craziest thing that happens this offseason for the Baltimore Ravens, and hopefully you can enjoy the beginning of the Orioles season without any other shock news coming your way. So we appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, Cordell.
There you go, Cordell Woodland for the second time in 2 days, and it was never Eagles and Ravens for 105.7 The Fan. Baltimore giving us the latest on what GM Eric DeCosta said after they pull out of the Maxx Crosby trade yesterday and his thoughts and insight as well.